Okay, welcome. This is Mark coming to you from Baker's Green Acres, and I'm talking to you from the command center this evening, the Baker's kitchen table. And I have a couple of things to brief tonight. This is a slightly different format. We have not used the YouTube Live very much, but there's a couple of reasons why we'd like to try it out and see if it's going to suit our needs here and suit the needs of the people that listen to us. But I have a very serious announcement to pass on to you at this time that I am really ecstatic about. I have been awarded the expert certification in homesteading, and I just received word today that my certificate came in, so now I am certified by the Homesteaders Guild as an expert in homesteading. So, I was pretty impressed with the whole thing, and thank you, impressive. And actually, there was an award dinner for me tonight, and actually, I'm sitting in the same chair I was sitting in when I ate my awards dinner. And tomorrow morning, there's going to probably be some special things happen here for me as well. So anyway, on to the next subject. I would like to start marketing our Homesteaders Guild class for spring. It's going to be coming up here pretty soon. We're in about our 8th week of the winter class, so there'll be a slight gap. And if you stay tuned, I will let you know, when exactly this is going to start and some of the subject material that's going to be included in the Homesteaders Guild Spring Edition. It's 12 weeks, and usually I don't tip my hand as to what I'm going to teach. It's more of a guide service. Sometimes I make videos that are just kind of off the cuff and just during the day what I'm doing. The Homesteaders Guild is more of a guide service where if I was going to send you out and you needed to be successful, these are the things that I think that you need to know in order to be all you can be, right? But another program that we have is on-farm classes. And it's more for people who are wanting to, engage in one of these processes that's not exactly something you can get out of a book. Some people probably could, but like our best class, I think, is the Homestead Hog Harvest class. So we're going to be in, I think, our 11th year this coming November. In homesteading, we try to do things seasonally when possible, and for processing animals outside, especially pigs, we want to do that in the fall, early winter, so it's not really cold, but we want to do it to where it's not a lot of flies. So the Homestead Hog Harvest class is November 1st on or about. It's usually a Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Friday we start with live pigs. The only thing that the students are not doing is the actual shoot. That's done by us, and that's it can be an ugly thing, if a pig pulls its head at the last second, you don't hit them good. So that's usually something that I do, and I've been doing it for a while, so it usually goes pretty good. But I have done classes where I've actually had bad shots and I have to, shoot again. I don't like to do that, so I know it wouldn't be a good starting point for the students if there was a bad shot, and I'm less likely to make a bad shot than the students are. But then we go through the whole process of scalding, scraping, and then splitting the pig in half. The next morning, 9 o'clock, we start. And it's 3 students per half. So you get quite a bit of hands-on, and we do the entire breakdown into primal cuts, and then we break the primal cuts down a little further than that. Not completely, that would be a long process, and there's a lot that I don't know. But I do pass on what I do know. It's my wife and I that teach it, and usually one of my kids will help. We usually like to have about 15 people in the class, that's about right. We do as much of it outside as we possibly can. And then the third day, we're getting into the salting, the sausage making, and then the theory of meat preservation, or what they call charcuterie. It's a really cool thing to get into if you're into homesteading. It's a great way to preserve meat, and you don't need any refrigeration or anything like that. And it really tastes good, preserves the nutrient density of the meat. So you've taken a lot of time processing your animal or raising your animal. If you can take it to the next step and process the animal and preserve the meat, that's really a neat thing to do. So that's coming up. You can check bakersgreenacres.com to find out the prices on that. And we want to fill those seats up as soon as possible. If we get a whole big overage, then we'll just have another class. And we usually do 2 or 3 of them every year. I don't necessarily do them on my place. I'll usually do one here, but I typically done one in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan as well, and then we've done them all over. Hey, I'm on the air here. So the other class that I'd like to market as well, get it out there, is the pastured poultry class. So this is a one-day class, and this is for people that are interested in getting into pastured poultry and are willing to come to an on-farm class. We start this one at 9, and we finish when we finish. So I would recommend staying over. You can't stay here, but you can stay downtown. And we take you out in the field. We show you how we brood the chicks. That's when we get them as just little peepers, and we'll let people handle them. Then the next step would be we show you the operation of our what they call chicken tractors. And they're frames that have no floor in them, and we move them every day and talk about feeding, talk about watering, talk about predation, talk about rate of growth, all the things that go with pastured poultry. And then we come back up to the house and we start working on a chicken tractor that is pretty much all cut and pretty much all there, but we'll just assemble it. We'll take about an hour to do that so people can see the construction techniques, and then we can talk about, why you want it strong here, but you don't really care about it being strong here, and all those things. So you can see it hands-on, in person. We build chicken tractors to last a long time. The ones I have here I have some that are way over 10 years old. And we've come up with a new generation of chicken tractors too that's going to be even better. And those are the ones that we're going to delve into and build. And then we move from there right to the butcher shop. We get people going in pairs, plucking chickens the old-fashioned way, sitting on a bucket. And we talk about scalding, and then plucking, and then evisceration. And then we run through a bunch of them a little bit more modern way with a scalder and a plucker. And everybody gets a chance to process several birds. The idea being, when you get home or on your way home, you're calling the hatchery and telling them what you want. And by the time the birds arrive, your brooder's set up, and you are ready to go. I mean, this class is inclusive. We even talk about marketing and things like that, regulation, things like that, all that stuff. Okay, that's a great one. Another one after that is we're going to do a fencing class, and that is a one day. And there are several structures that if you can build and you're shown how to do it and you build them strong enough, that fence corner post or H post, whichever it is, will be there long after you're gone. And that's what you want. I mean, if you're going to do homesteading, farming, livestock, if you can't keep the animals where they're supposed to be, you're going to get discouraged really fast. So that's sort of the idea of the Anyone Can Farm program, is give you the basic skills. Everybody wants to be a farmer, right, and live happily ever after. But it's good if you don't have the train wrecks that you can have if you don't get a little advice or seek a little bit of training. And, we've seen that there's a huge lack of training out there. And so, hey, we'll do it. We'll do it. I like doing it. I was instructor for a while in the Air Force, and I like instructing. It really wakes my mind up and makes me think of other things. That's the Homesteaders Guild. That program is really cool because we get to talk about a lot of neat things. There's Ducks and Clucks. All right, they're one of the people that calls in on we have a Wednesday night call-in show too. This one's really impromptu because I want to see how this works. I want to see who gets this. So what you guys could do would be a great favor is like and share, of course, because that manipulates the algorithm so that this information gets to more ears and eyes. And you also interact. So put your 2 cents in. One of the problems that that I'm having with this YouTube, also with the Facebook, is it is written so small, and I haven't figured out how to make it a little bit bigger. So I think what we'll do is we'll use a tablet, and we'll set that down so we can actually read it. Because right now I got to have Jill sitting next to me to read them. But if you do have questions here, I can take some questions tonight. I'm always glad to. Write them in capital letters. Right now, I am just fooling around with this to see how it's going to work and to see if it's a suitable format. But it looks like it's going okay. I mean, it came on all right, and I see people are talking to each other here, so that's great. So let's see, we're going to do a fencing, we're going to do a pasture poultry, we always do the homestead hog harvest. These are homestead skills that once you have them, they're in your toolbox forever. So the way that we try to get people to a point where they see this is invest in yourself, all right? So a lot of times you invest in a car dealership, you invest in Consumers Energy, you're investing with a lot of people, and it's a one-time deal. If you invest in homestead skill knowledge, it's something that goes in your toolbox, and you have it forever. And not only that, you can pass it on to your friends, neighbors, and children, which is a good thing to pass on, I think. Okay, let's see, what other classes do we want to do? Okay, I'm drawing a blank right now, but for those of you that are coming in a little bit late, let me reiterate that I received my official certification from the Anyone Can Farm Homesteaders Guild today, expert rating, all right? Yes, I did. I received that today. I haven't actually gotten the certificate, but Joe will type it up tomorrow, and I'll display that proudly so that everybody can see that. And then please tell your friends that you listen to an expert homesteader, and I'm sure everybody will want to come and listen. Okay, I've got a question here for the expert. Do you dry out your bread, feed it in... It disappeared. Can you do that again? Do I dry out my bread? No, I don't tap maple trees. No, I don't mean to say it like that, but I'm sorry. No, I don't tap maple trees. Are you going to attend the Homesteaders of America conference in front of Royal Virginia this year? I'm sure that when they find out about my expert certification, they'll probably send me first class airfare or a jet. And yeah, maybe I'll see you there. Do I dry out my bread? I do not. I have been doing some experiments lately. What this guy is talking about, I'm sorry, I didn't see who you were twice, but I have a junk bread contract with a company locally here, and they give me 10 tons or 10 yards of bread per week. And then do I dry out my bread in the winter? No, I don't. Not to feed my pigs, but I'm working on an experiment. I have a small feed grinder, and I can grind grain through it, and I can also grind bread through it if it's dry. So in the winter time, when my chickens are not laying very much, they're not really supposed to lay much in the wintertime, I can give them very inexpensive feed, right? And then I'm learning how to make really hot feed, really good feed, really nutritious, nutrient-dense feed for them, and feed that to them in the summer. But it's a good question. I really like talking about, a very rudimentary subject like I like laying hens because it's sort of, gets ho-hum after a while. But if you pick up some of the techniques that we've come across over the years, it's a pretty neat deal. They're definitely seasonal. I mean, you'll have them for the whole year, but they really only want to lay in the spring and in the summer. And then to get them to lay more, there's things you can put in their feed, which I don't think is too good. And there's, you can hang lights in their in their coop and stuff like that, which it kind of takes off the bottom line of your egg. But I think a more interesting way to go is tweak the process to where you're getting an egg that is extremely nutrient dense. And when you sit down to eat it, it's an experience. The eggs that we get from the store, I mean, they look like an egg, but there's nothing like the eggs that you can custom build, if you feed your chickens right. But chickens are actually good grazers. And what I'm going to do this year, just to give you a little glimpse into the future, I am going to show you this too because it's really cool. I have a big pen. We used to let them free range. We don't anymore because they get into everything. We have a big pen. It's probably 40 by 40, 30 by 30, right? And I'm going to build 2 more of them, 30 by 30. I'm going to build a new chicken house. It's going to be a big one that I can walk in and collect the eggs. There's plenty of room. But it's going to be on skids, so I can move it to clear the area out, periodically. I've got a great design that I've been working on. It's very much in line with the new chicken tractors that I'm building. I'll show you. No, Jill's not. Jill's on her class tonight. Jill's going after a certification in Ayurvedic medicine. But she's getting certified by somebody else. But I'm going to have these 3 pens, and they're going to be big enough doorways in them that I can get in there with my tractor's rototiller, so I can rototill it up, plant rye. Rye comes up really quick, and then when the rye gets up about that big, I can just turn the chickens in there. And so long as we're really tuning up the soil that's in there, that rye is going to be packed full of nutrient. And, in the Homesteaders Guild, we talk about soils, talk about soil tests, and we use an outfit called Logan Labs that we can send soil into, and it will tell us all the trace minerals that are missing in our soil. And once you get those all in your soil and you give it a little while, it is amazing the results you get for produce, and also with livestock too, because livestock, they eat dirt, they get the mineral in them, and they do really well. In a chicken, do you really notice much? They're nice and shiny, and then you get a really nice egg that's really orange on the inside, you know, and then when you eat them, they taste really like woody, kind of rich, to eat. Really like them. So that's going to be a great project, and I'm looking forward to that. I'm using some new technologies as far as building, bending heavy conduit. It's called 1 3/8 conduit, and I can bend that and make hoops, and then put fabric over it and kind of cinch it down tight. It's from my aviation days. What's not good about not having Jill here is I'm gonna forget. You don't have to. This is just impromptu.
Yeah, it's going well.
Okay. Was there another question? Oh, I was talking about our bread contract. I am experimenting with cutting bread. All right. No, feeding bread to my pigs is at 100% of their diet in the wintertime. Okay, first of all, we raise Mangalitsa pigs. I have some Mangalitsa crosses, but they're mostly just Mangalitsa. I don't want to use the word pure in there because that's kind of, I think it's voodoo now. But they do very well on just about anything. I mean, really, they eat straw and do well on it. And so I feed them a lot of bread, but I also feed them a lot of hay as well. And in the summertime, we have a lot of protein available because we have a butcher shop and we butcher lots and lots of chickens. Do I have a chicken house plan I can share? Wait till I get it built, and then I'll share it because I want to make sure it's going to work out pretty good. But yeah, feeding the Mangalitsas, they do really well on bread. They do really well on hay. Some people have a problem feeding them hay, but you have to train them into it because, if they've got bread, they're not going to really want to eat hay. They have to get used to the hay. Mine now, when I give them hay, they do that thing where they twirl around in circles. I don't know if people have seen that. I'm going to have to I've got a videographer now, actually, my 15-year-old son. I gave him the option of being my videographer or my wood cutter, and he said he'd like to be a videographer. And so he's getting himself trained up on that, and we're going to tweak these videos to put more stuff in them, more entertaining things. I think people who are considering getting in the homesteading business, they want to see, what it looks like around here. And I can tell you, it is a great way of life. I mean, I highly recommend it if you can. Third Coast, smart 15-year-old. I'm sorry that I'm squinting. Hey, I have glasses. Why not? Make me look, it's probably fitting with my new status. I should have glasses on with a status like that. I'll make sure that as soon as my certificate is hot off the press and is signed by the certifier, I'll make sure that I pass that on to y'all. Okay, now I'm waiting for a question. There it is. Very smart. Fun on the homestead. You mean my new glasses? Yeah. For the expert homesteader. Well, it was a long time coming. But hello from Ozarks. I listen to a guy from the Ozarks once in a while. Do I have a preference between red swallow-bellied pigs? I really don't. The red ones, I've never actually had one of those on my place. I've had some that came out looking pretty red, but they weren't the actual red ones that were imported. They were very expensive. I got into them the first load that came over from Austria. Went to a guy by the name of Heath Putnam, and I got mine from him. And they were swallow bellies. Then I got a hold of some blondes, and I let them breed together, and it comes out with a brindle. I'm not really into the breeding stock thing. We're just kind of meat farmers, and we don't even really raise that many of them anymore. I only have, on the farm right now, I have 20, just 20. And 4 of them are sows, one's a boar. And pretty soon here we'll have a bunch of little ones. Okay, I'm ready for those questions. Wow, look at the size of that crowd. I wonder if somebody could do something about that barking dog. What about feeding pigs rabbit chickenings and eggs for protein? Rabbit chickenings? Rabbit chickenings. You mean rabbit turds? Yeah, we're still doing the question and answer on Wednesday. That's going to be a scheduled one. This was just really impromptu to see what would happen here. Feeding rabbit chickenings. I'm not sure I know what those are. 2 quacks, yes he is. Fun on the homestead. That sounds like a fun place. Chickenings, I'm not sure I know what that is, but if it's turds. I'll tell you what though, Mangalitsa's can eat just about anything. And like when we... How do I advertise to get my... No. What you want to do to sell Mangalitsa's is, I think, unless you want to go big, you'll never have enough supply to supply a restaurant, you know. Now I'm getting a lot of questions, Jill, so I would need you here. If you go small, what you want to do is you want to create your own database, just right off of your computer, and just sell to your friends and neighbors. And you know, I mean, neighbors, they could be way across town, or they could be in another wherever. And but if you start doing farmers markets, or if you want to do restaurants, you want to do retail stores, stuff like that, I don't recommend that. Plus, you have to have a big supply, because when a restaurant makes a change to a menu and puts Mangalitsa on the menu, for one thing, a lot of times you've got to be able to prove that it's Mangalitsa. And I'm not sure about that. I mean, how do you really prove it? Maybe you're certified. Maybe you have a certifier that lives in... I don't know. I don't know how to do that. But I think a better way to go in homesteading... Homesteading really is... It's a way of life. And it's like a part-time job where you create all of your own proteins, carbohydrates, and your farm becomes an environment that you can live in that's worth living in, you know. I'm not saying quit your daytime job to homestead. I'm saying homestead in conjunction with your daytime job. And the money that you save at the store and at the doctor's office.
They lost you.
Who did?
Lorna says it looks like we've lost Mark.
Well, this one says I'm live. Can you guys hear me? Well, I'll just keep going. I wasn't planning on staying on this long anyway. But homesteading is it's to supplement your income. It's to keep you from having to go. Okay, I'm still on.
Okay.
Lorna's no. Hear you loud and clear. Lone Star. Lone Star, that looks familiar. But No, I'm not recommending that you quit your day job to homestead. Get into it slowly because the learning curve, unless you were brought up on a farm, a lot of this stuff's going to be new to you. And the tendency with new things is that you're going to, make some mistakes. So if you quit your day job, you could be in trouble. So no, just start slow, get more and more processes behind you or under your belt in your toolbox, however you want to say it. And then maybe at some point you can, quit your day job. I am retired from the Air Force. So that was my career. I did 20 years, so I'm out now. And then we commercially farmed for 15 years. And so now I'm just homesteading. And it's not like I'm not doing anything. You actually are doing more because there's way more diversity and this continued learning. And I may have the time now to go to workshops and learn new things. And now we're doing this too, so we want to pass on a bunch of this information and meet the needs of a public that seems to be demanding better food and a little bit of self-sufficiency at their own hands. So, this is something that we can do because we have the background in it, and we're confident that that we're experts, and everything we say is absolute truth. There was a bunch of questions in there, Joe, that I didn't quite get.
The question, the chicklings, it was, do you feed them rabbits, chickens, and eggs for protein?
Oh, you can. Yeah. We butcher quite a few rabbits, right? And sometimes people don't want the hides, and that goes in with the feathers. Sometimes I'll dump the feathers into the pigs, and they just root through it. They don't actually eat the feathers, but they don't do anything with the hides. If there's a head in there, they'll crunch that up and eat it for sure. And it's legit. I mean, it's protein. It's not rotten. But the way the guide that we're following is, if these pigs were in the wild, what would they eat in the wild? And do they eat seasonally in the wild? I think the answer to that is yes. Of course, we don't see pigs in the wild in the state that I live in, because if you did, they'd be on every dead deer alongside the road. Is there another question?
Oh, yeah, and he commented what he was thinking was that he could raise lots of rabbits and chickens for a little money and then feed them to the pigs for raw protein.
Well, why don't you do this? Get into pastured poultry, raise chickens, butcher the chickens, learn how to butcher the chickens, come and take a class with us or somebody else. And then the heads, the feet, the necks, if you don't want them, feed those to the chickens. And then, feed those to the pigs, and then you put the chickens in your freezer and you eat them, unless you're having adversity to chicken. Yeah, I did get my grinder. I opted for a $200 grinder, and it's kind of wimpy. I haven't shown it yet. You can put feed through it, but in the meantime, I went to a continued learning educational thing, and I found out about, what was that kind of acid we found out about? Phthalic?
Phytic.
Phytic acid. I got a bunch of puppies behind me. Phytic acid. Phytic acid is on grains, and it is a anti-digestive agent that was built into the plan. So when an animal eats, like in the wild, you'll have a seed head on a grain stalk, and the animal eats that off of there, let's say a deer or a bison, and it's going through their digestive system. That phytic acid prevents some of that from being digested. Now, if the deer chews it up, well, it'll digest. But if it's going through whole, there's a good chance that it might make it through, that phytic acid. So that's actually in place to keep, and that's in the design so that some of that seed will come out and be reseeded into fields and pastures, right? So the design will continue to flourish. Good design. But if you take those grains and you soak them overnight, all that acid comes to the top, you pour it off, and then you feed it to the chickens soaked. It's way better than grinding your feed. So I found that information out after I got the grinder. And so I don't know. Maybe if you live close to me, you can come buy my grinder. But I think you'd be better off getting grains and soaking them, even sprouting them. Here's one. DJ, did you at one time do fodder for the pigs? I never did, but I was just talking about that. It makes a lot of sense. If for guys that don't know what fodder is when you take seeds, whether it's barley or wheat or even corn, you soak it, put it in low trays, and then you let those trays sprout, and they'll make a mat. It looks like a doormat that's about this thick. And I've seen where guys just take and peel those things off, cut them off, and throw them in with the animals, and they really love them, and it's really good for them too. So it's worth looking into. I haven't done it like that. I've done it where I've had a concrete pad and I spread it out and I let them sprout on there and I picked them up with a loader and dumped them in just as an experiment. But I would like to. I really would. That's one of the things on my bucket list. Yes, ma'am.
Last one.
Last one. This will
Have
be
you
the
been
last
able
one.
To stay away from GMOs.
Do I what?
Have you been able to stay away from GMOs?
Yeah. GMOs. GMOs, it's an acronym for genetically modified organism. And the reason they genetically modify corn, let's say, is so they can spray glyphosate on it. And that's a defoliant, and it will kill everything but the corn. So it's weed control is what it is. The problem with it is they say it doesn't have a residual effect, but the evidence proves that it does have a residual effect. And even though we're a mammal, we have a lot of plant life in our gut, and it's affected by a herbicide. So you really don't want you don't want to get glyphosate in you. You definitely don't want your food soaked in it. So when you stay away from GMOs, like you're probably talking about feed corn, you have to look around for it, and then you really have to be able to trust the person that you're buying it from. You pay a little bit more for it. That's probably going to change. Glyphosate's getting a lot of bad press in the United States now. It's otherwise known as Roundup, getting a lot of bad press. So I don't know if we'll be seeing it much longer. They'll probably come up with something else, but we'll see. Okay, I think that is our last question. And if there isn't another quick question, I'm going to sign off, and I'm going to chalk this up to a good test, and we will be talking to you again on Wednesday night at 7 o'clock, same mode. So, good evening. Remember, anyone can farm.